and welcome to Season 13, Episode 37. It's Tuesday, the 2nd of December. It's nearly the end of the year. Gosh, that came quickly, didn't it? No. And in this episode, we're going to be looking at the community news and events, and we'll also have some news headlines. And joining me this week, as ever, it's the two amigos. Sorry, I'm thinking of computers again. Alan and Martin. Hello, fellas.
Hello.
I'm glad you said hello. I wasn't sure who should say hello first. Hello as well.
We should have done it together in sync. The two amigas, remember?
3, 2, 1.
Hello.
Greetings.
Alan sucks.
That was terrible. That was terrible. Right, Martin.
Yes.
What have you been doing with yourself of recent?
Well, now I have a fully functioning computer again, what can do streaming. I have been doing Linuxy streaming related things on that there YouTube.
Oh, what have you been streaming this time?
Well, so the Ubuntu Mate team had a team meeting a couple of weeks ago, and one of the outcomes of that is there are members of the team that want to start contributing in sort of a package maintenance and updating packages capacity, and they're kind of new to that. So they asked for me to cover off like some of the introductory level stuff for updating deb packages. Mm-hmm. So I did a relatively short stream on that. And then I did a really long
3 hours later.
I did a really long stream, which we'll get to later. And then the other stream I did was I've got, if I may be so bold, I've got quite good at OBS Studio, or at least I've learnt a few things about OBS Studio. And there's a bunch of people been asking me to sort of, share that information. So I did a stream where I basically demoed like what my OBS Studio setup looks like and how it works.
So were you using OBS Studio to stream your OBS Studio setup?
Yes, so this was the sort of hidden gem here. I was doing OBS Inception. I was using OBS to demo OBS.
And if someone wanted to know if you wanted to live stream OBS using OBS and someone wanted to know how you would do that, would you do a live stream using OBS within OBS within OBS in order to show how you would have done the live stream that you did?
I think I can do 3. I think I can go many levels deep. I think I can, what is it in Inception? They go like 4 or 5 levels deep. I think I can reproduce that with many OBSs.
Excellent. Alan, what have you been up to?
I have been on the popular website AskUbuntu.
Oh.
I've found myself every so often having 5 minutes to spare here and there. And I thought I'd have a bit of a go back to my roots where I very first started contributing to Ubuntu, which was answering support questions. And I thought I'd go back to Ask Ubuntu and, give back to people who are asking questions now. And some of it was just looking for questions that don't have answers and trying to provide an answer, or leaving a comment asking for more detail, or just upvoting good answers and downvoting the not so good answers, just the general stuff you do on a Stack Exchange site. It's quite a nice way to pass time and give something back.
So it's been a while since you've really sort of focused on that, right? Because you started your Ubuntu adventure doing that. Have you noticed if the nature of the questions are different now to what they were when you were doing it back in I suppose 9 years ago, something like that?
Yeah, they're harder. It's more than that. It was back in 2006. I started doing that, 2006,
right.
2007, something like that. There's some weird esoteric stuff that I don't touch, and so I've got no idea how to answer that question. But that's the wonderful world of open source. You've got an Ubuntu desktop, but then you can run all kinds of stuff on top of it, and people are asking questions not just about how do I get my wireless working, or my system crashes, what do I do? But they're asking, how do I create a shell script that does this thing? Or, I've half created this thing, how do I finish it off, kind of stuff. It is super fascinating. And the thing that I discovered was that you can create saved filters. So it's easy to search for stuff and search for tags that questions get tagged and search for unanswered questions. But you can actually save that as a filter so that when you come back to the site, you can just press one button and I can see all of the unanswered questions. And I think those are the ripe ones that I aim for, simply because there is someone out there who has a problem and nobody has yet answered their question or offered any kind of help at all. And so I feel those are the ones that I always want to take a look at first, because someone's clearly got a problem. And often you go there and it's minutes ago that someone asked the question. It's not something that's sat there for days and days and days and has no answer. People will often comment and answer, but it's interesting to highlight the popularity of Ubuntu is how fast, thick and fast these questions are coming in from people needing help.
So you're advocating for answering the fresh, unanswered questions as opposed to providing a better answer to an already answered question.
It's all good stuff. I mean, if you want to browse the ones that are currently hot and have a bunch of contentious answers, and you want to help clarify the best one or tidy up the answers because someone's just bashed out a quick answer and you want to tidy it up, you could do that as well. There's so many ways in which to get involved in Ask Ubuntu. I love it. It's quite therapeutic, and like I said, it's a good way to give back to people. And so I've just spent a little bit of time doing that. Also, it helps that it's got a points system, and I'm a very points driven person. Yeah. So there are no prizes, but you do get like activated like features and stuff within Ask Ubuntu, which is quite a nice motivator to get you to keep coming back. It's quite good.
When you say points driven, I think you mean a sucker for internet gamification.
Yes.
And on that note, let's get on with the rest of the show. And now it's time for the community news. And first up in the community news, Martin, what did you find?
So, Torsten Franz, who has recently been voted on to the Ubuntu Community Council, decided to write a blog post reflecting on his first month serving on the CC, which, as a previous member of the Community Council, I found like an interesting little read.
Yeah, I think this is a fantastic idea. Because the Community Council have a closed mailing list where conversation happens. I mean, I've also been on the CC some years ago, and a lot of the conversations happen on that closed list. Some of it happens on IRC. There's private emails, and there's a private IRC channel, and there's all these back channels where things are done. But there's an open meeting on IRC as well. So you can like join the meeting and get involved and have conversations with the CC. But I don't think anyone's ever done like reports like this of what's gone on in, my first month or my first week in the CC. And I hope Torsten keeps it up, and I hope some of the other people on the CC provide their perspective as well, because you need to see, all the different angles, because on the CC you find people have opposing views on things, on how to deal with conflict, or what strategies might be done to improve things in the community. I think it's fantastic, and I was really pleased to see this.
Yeah, I think a little bit of retrospective is healthy. If Torsten is listening, I don't think he listens. I spoke to his people, and his people said no. But if they were to put him in touch, maybe not every month, but periodically, like a little retrospective on how it's going, would be helpful, because there are some people on the CC that are coming around the second or third time, and there are other people who are fresh in. And I think having a little bit of perspective and reflection on how this is working is a little bit of healthy, critique and analysis. And he included links to two of the IRC meetings that have taken place. So we'll have links to those in the show notes for anyone that wants to see what goes on in a CC meeting. And he also explains time zones are hard, because obviously the CC is composed of people from all over the world. And I think they've actually, so if you're subscribed to the Ubuntu Fridge calendar, don't expect to find the Community Council meeting at the time that's in the Ubuntu Fridge, because I think they've had to change the times to suit, this new composition of the Community Council.
Yeah, it's always the way, working for Canonical, you get that, there's people all over the world, and you have to, shift your stuff around. But people at Canonical are paid to do that as part of their job, whereas people in the community are giving up like a chunk of their evening, or, it might be the kids' bedtime, or it could be early in the morning before they go to work, or even snatching an hour at lunchtime or something. I know this from my experience before I joined Canonical when I was on the CC. There was times when I remember sitting with Sophie as a baby in my arms, like rocking her to sleep while chatting away one-handed on IRC.
Did your keyboard not wake her up?
I had a quiet one back then. Yes.
Alan, what's next?
Ubuntu Mate is apparently slashing features.
It is true.
And there's a link to a clickbaited YouTube video, which I think features you, Martin.
It does. It features me dressed as Captain Banana Trumpet.
Well, so as I understand it, the if we cut to the actual chase, as I understand it, there's some bits and bobs that you're removing that maybe weren't as well-rounded, well-finished as you would hoped you'd have got them done by now, and essentially you don't think enough people use them, and it's worth keeping hold of those features and carrying the weight of maintaining those, so it's easier to just get rid of it.
Yes, it is those things, but sort of getting rid of things in a responsible way, I suppose, is what we're trying to do here. So
going random directories, doing RMRF, and then pushing it up to GitHub.
It felt like that when I was doing the live stream. I'm just like, toss this out, toss that out, and eventually make it work again. But no, the real driver of this is that, for followers of Ubuntu Mate, you might be familiar. We have this layout called Mutiny, and it was a clever play on words to create a Unity-like experience for the Mate desktop. And it kind of sort of simulates a lot of what Unity 7 used to do. But in actual fact, it's incomplete and there's some bugs, and it creates a lot of friction and pain points for people that enable that, and it doesn't quite work as well as they would like. So again, I referenced the team meeting that we had recently, and one of the things that the team agreed upon is, yes, this is a pain point. Lots of people raise issues around this, and we agreed we can't finish it based on like the people we have working on the project, and it's better that we drop those features and focus on the things that we can improve. But by dropping them, we're not just deleting them outright. What we're doing initially is removing them from the default installation. So they won't be there from, 2104 onwards, but you can still manually install these features if you really want them. And we will put up some deprecation notices on the associated GitHub projects and give people the opportunity who care about this stuff to step in. And if they want to bring them up to, a standard, then we could reintroduce them. And if that doesn't happen, then they will eventually just, be left to bit rot and wither and die. Yeah.
Oh,
that's pretty cool. I mean, it's good to like talk to your community about what you think, isn't something that is up to snuff and should be ejected, and do it in a respectful way rather than just, like I said, like going around wielding a scythe and, culling stuff. And I'm sure most projects do this. I know some people feel like GNOME has this, mentality of going around removing stuff, but there's a lot of thought that goes on behind. It may not be very public conversations, or it might happen at a conference like Guadec or something. But any open source project that is removing features does it for a very good reason. They're not just like trying to keep themselves in work.
Yeah,
there's always a good reason for it.
I was very conflicted about this, and in fact more so because as the stream was about to start, people twigged what the stream title meant, and they could see where this was heading. And they were like, no, I don't want to see this thing removed.
It's more of a curiosity though, isn't it? It's not like the selling feature of Ubuntu Mate. It's not like the
not.
It was for
primary
me.
interface. Oh, was it? Oh, right.
Well, a lot of people said that. This was it. As the stream was starting, people were saying, oh, I love Mate HUD and I like the Unity layout and all the rest of it. And I'm like, oh, dear God, what are we about to do here? But we had rationalized this as a team. And one of the things we'd agreed upon as a team is, with the advent of Ubuntu Unity Remix, if the Unity desktop experience is what you most want, there is somebody else doing it really well, and that's where you should go.
Yeah, that's a fair
and we
point,
are fine having those users go to Ubuntu Unity Remix rather than getting a half-assed experience from Ubuntu Mate.
And speaking of a person maintaining such a flavour, Rudra Saraswat has posted an update about Ubuntu Web Remix. So this is a flavour of Ubuntu, or a remix of Ubuntu, it's not a flavour yet, which is designed to give you a sort of Chrome OS-like experience based around web apps. And they've created a web app format called WAP to package web apps for the desktop. It's based around Firefox. And they've got a store for their web apps and also integration with, I don't know how to pronounce this, so I'm just going to say cloud services. This is
Northern Cloud Services.
But yeah, it's a mobile operating system, I think.
That's right. It's a de-Googled, as free as it can be, Android operating system.
Yes.
So for those people who are getting flashbacks to the Nokia 7110 when you said WAP, it's not that kind of WAP.
No, it's not that kind of WAP. No.
So I would just like to suggest that, Rudra is a young gentleman who probably wasn't born when WAP was a thing and didn't appreciate the name collision that was being created there.
Yeah.
No, he is an enthusiastic young person, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
Yes. And I have to say, reading the discourse thread where he's discussing this, incredibly professional in his manner.
I think
fielding some quite unkindly worded feedback in some cases about some of the directions that he's taken with this, and his responses show that actually he's thought all of this through really well and tried things out and come up with what he thinks is the best solution.
I completely endorse what you've just said. I think for, a younger member of the Ubuntu community, he handled himself with real integrity and composure, sometimes fronted with borderline aggressive critique of what he was setting out to do. And it made me a bit sad because, old greybeards such as Alan and I have got thicker skins and can weather that kind of, probing. But I think, it's unfortunate that people want to gravitate towards, negative commentary so quickly without really thinking about, somebody's investing time and effort into making a thing. Maybe we should focus on the positives of what they're doing and try and support them in their endeavors rather than try and knock them down.
Yeah, it's difficult because, you need people to be able to voice opinion and say, hey, this is bad because of these reasons, or it doesn't do this thing and it should, or you've chosen this path and you haven't articulated why. Because it's not like there's a whole bunch of documentation and a website that details all the thought processes. This is like bedroom coder style. Mm-hmm. Someone has taken a whole bunch of open source stuff, smushed it together, added a bit of magic and created an ISO image that you can grab and try out in their own time, unpaid, off their own back. And the flurry of uninformed reckon that you get from the internet is par for the course with this kind of thing. And I think he like you say, he's done very well to weather that storm. Part of me thinks that we need to fine tune discourse a little bit better so that we have fewer opportunities for people to be like this, because, we do expect people to abide by the code of conduct when they're on this thing. And so I didn't notice this conversation. So I will go and revisit it, not that I'm going to go and take the ban hammer to these people, but I think people need to be reminded that this is a place where we expect respectful discourse, not, rants.
Yeah, it's intended to be a warm, safe place to express ideas and aspirations to extend and develop the Ubuntu ecosystem. And it shouldn't be met with, massively negative, uninformed commentary.
Martin, what's up next?
So referencing back to the new Ubuntu Community Council, the results of the Ubuntu Membership Board elections have been announced.
Ooh.
So there's a number of new serving members on the Ubuntu Membership Board, including friends of the show, Daniel Llewellyn and Dustin Kryzak, who will be familiar to many people listening to this, and also those people that are in our Telegram group, ubuntupodcast.org/Telegram.
Yeah, this is great. So the membership board we mentioned before is a team who review applicants who are applying for membership themselves. You get some rewards for your contribution to Ubuntu, significant and sustained contribution to Ubuntu. And so there was a process, and these people were selected via a vote, wasn't it, of in the community. So these people will meet on a regular basis, and they will just review the new members as they apply. And it's really good.
So, Mark, I know you've been, eagerly preparing your application to become an Ubuntu member. So now you know there is, in fact, a membership board also eagerly awaiting your application so they can approve you for membership. So I look forward to seeing that one.
I should get on with that then, shouldn't I?
Yeah, totally. It's the only reason they were formed is so that you could apply for Ubuntu membership, Mark. They're going to be disbanded immediately afterwards.
That's a lot of pressure if they decide not to give it to me, isn't it?
And in fact, Mark, I know the listeners can't see this, but if you look behind me where I'm pointing now, that's my Ubuntu membership certificate.
Oh, you get a certificate,
wall.
do you? Oh, I'm definitely doing it now then.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. And that's all of the community news we've got time for this week. And now it's time for some news headlines. Martin, what have you been reading in the headlines this week?
Oh, I have been wallowing in internet drama. I read with interest that the Twin Galaxies have struck back at Billy Mitchell's frivolous claims about his high scores on such games as Donkey Kong and Pac-Man.
So we've discussed this before, something to do with a documentary called King of Kong, is that right?
We have, yeah. Was it earlier this year we discussed this?
Yep,
I think
it
so.
It was. I wasn't sure. I mean, all these memories blend into one. This year has taken about a decade to elapse, and I couldn't remember if it was this season or last season. But yes, this is one of those internet dramas I just can't wrench myself away from. But yes, Twin Galaxies have rebutted Billy Mitchell's claims quite aggressively, which they've not done before, and they've really laid bare, his claims, stating that Mitchell lacks the requisite natural skill and ability to be the greatest video game player of all time.
Gosh.
So it's getting personal.
So for those people who don't know, Twin Galaxies is a website, an organization that host the rankings for people doing things like speed runs, fastest at a particular game or highest score in whatever game.
So they're the Guinness Book of Records for video games.
Yes,
essentially,
exactly.
yes.
Yeah. But I believe Twin Galaxies, the organization, was sold recently. Didn't somebody buy Twin Galaxies? And that's what's triggered some of this bite back against Billy Mitchell.
This is where it all stems from. So, old Twin Galaxies was, I don't know if it was owned, but it was certainly operated by Billy Mitchell and Walter Day. Walter Day being the adjudicator, always dressed as like, I don't understand American sports, but a referee uniform, right?
Yeah, black and white stripes.
Yeah.
Like a prisoner.
Indeed. And so the claim is that they have been falsifying Billy Mitchell's high scores for decades in order to sort of inflate the value of Twin Galaxies so that they could sell it on and profit from that. And the new owners of Twin Galaxies are basically saying there was a clause in the purchase of this thing that, all of the data was correct, accurate and truthful. And because it is allegedly not, they're saying it has devalued and undermined the credibility of the new Twin Galaxies owners and the data that they're now the custodians of.
Wow.
Anyway, this, if you've not watched King of Kong, we've all got time on our hands. Now's a good time to go and watch that. I think it's on Netflix still. And if it's not, instead of EastEnders this Christmas, I'm going to be watching the court hearing in Los Angeles on December the 11th, where they're going to be airing this current round of court hearings on this ongoing dispute.
Yes, sounds like this will rumble on and on.
Yeah, I find it fascinating that, games from 1980 and 1981 are being argued over in a court, for, many hundreds of thousands of dollars.
It's the internet. People will argue about anything.
Yep.
Alan, what's next?
Linux may be coming to Apple Silicon.
No, it won't.
Gosh.
I said may. I did say may. Well, this is if you pony up for the Patreon anyway. Hector Martin is a developer who's offered their services to support Linux over to the M1 processors that you will find in the latest generation of Apple hardware. And this is a developer who's got track record of putting
Linux on things, I think he describes it as.
Yes, and previously done it on the PlayStation 4. And so this was quite exciting for a lot of people. It's a Patreon campaign thing where you pay monthly because the developer wants to, earn a wage while they're doing it because they're going to have to take away from doing paid contract work while they're doing this porting effort. And they wrote a little description of what they plan to do, and they said it's a big project, and we're going to need a lot of money because I've got to buy the devices, and they're not cheap. I mean, the cheapest one is the Mac Mini, which is like $800 or something like that. But they've set a target of a monthly pledge of $4,000. So they can guarantee their investment because it's going to take a while to do all the reverse engineering and stuff. I mean, I don't know exactly how much, but as at the point at which we're recording this, they've reached that goal, the kickoff goal.
No way.
So the project will start in January. Yeah. And they can dedicate time to it.
I am astonished. My feeling is this will be a Herculean effort to even get halfway to where they need to get to because Apple have now integrated this T2 security chip into M1 Silicon, which is designed to prevent this very thing. And Apple hold the keys to that gateway. I mean, good luck to Hector, but I really feel like he's up against it on this one.
I think, yes, there is the stumbling blocks. There are these boulders in the way between him and the mountain that he wants to climb. But every single games console that's been sold in the last 10 or 15, 20 years has some kind of copy protection in. And they have flaws in them, and people exploit those flaws. Like the Wii has a flaw where you can, put special stuff on an SD card and you're in. And the PlayStation had flaws and the Xbox had flaws. They've all got ways in. And, if you've got a significantly inquisitive mind and some experience and the motivation of a pile of cash to keep you going.
It is the motivation, yeah.
But then it's the thing is, it's one guy versus Apple.
Right.
I'm not sure it is, actually. I don't think it is one person because there's going to be documentation of what they've discovered so far. Now, this will be public and other people can throw their oar in. There are people who work on Linux who've previously worked on Apple products or who know information about the workings of some of these things who aren't this person. And so I think the collective internet hive mind of brain cells will be able to work on this together, even if they're not all part of this Patreon. I think having someone project manage it and spearhead the project and manage it and do the documentation. And they've also said they're going to do live streams, which I think will be super interesting for people to watch. And you know what it's like, Martin, when you do a live stream and you're doing some creative development endeavor, there's always people in the chat who are willing to offer up either, paying their respects with an F when something dies, or offering useful feedback. And I suspect he will get
pull requests and patches after the fact.
Yes, it could well be that even just a little bit of documentation may help this move along. I'd be surprised if this isn't done within 6 months of next year.
Well, let's watch this one with interest. I mean, I wish Hector every success, but I really feel that he's bitten off a little bit more than he might be able to chew on this occasion.
And finally, Microsoft has backpedaled on its productivity score.
What's that then?
What is a productivity score?
So this is a feature that was recently previewed for Office 365, where it's basically this dashboard which it provides at a sort of management level, where it uses analytics of what the users are doing and how many documents they're editing and what they're doing on the documents and how many emails they're getting through and so on, and gives them a productivity score.
A clout score.
Yes. So yes, this was previewed, and people who, might use Office 365 at work saw this and weren't very happy with the idea that their productivity might be based on how well they use Office 365, and that might be used by their management to determine how good they are at their jobs. And Microsoft have fortunately listened to this feedback and decided that just because they can do something doesn't mean they should, and have now said that this feature is going to focus on organizational level metrics rather than targeting individuals. So they're not going to put people's names against particular numbers in this system. They're going to be looking at how teams do and how the organization as a whole does, which I think is a very good idea.
It's surprising because there are companies out there doing these. There's been talk on the news over lockdown of companies who buy in software that monitors what people are doing. And I've seen countless social posts where people are tying their mouse to a fan that's in order to
so it spins around endlessly.
So it just the rotation back and forth of the fan nudges the mouse backwards and forwards across the desk just to continuously give input so that the monitoring software thinks the person is sat there. Now, you're going to be on one or either side of the fence as to whether that's a good thing or a bad thing for both sides of this, right? But there are still going to be companies out there doing it. It's just Microsoft is saying it's not going to be us, but there's plenty of other people who are doing this, employee monitoring stuff already. They're just noping out of it themselves.
And that's all of the news we've got time for this week. And that's it for episode 37. Thank you everybody for listening. Next week, we'll be discussing cloud gaming, some love, and your feedback. If you'd like to send us some feedback, you can email show@ubuntupodcast.org. You can come and chat with us in our Telegram channel at ubuntupodcast.org/Telegram, and you can tweet at us at Ubuntu Podcast on Twitter.